Hello. I like to read a lot. I like to track my reading in a bunch of different places. I have stopped using Goodreads for a very long time, and I've decided that I want to try and track it digitally this year pretty much entirely. I've been a bullet journaler on and off for the past like 7 or 8 years, and one of the things I did with that was to make a reading journal. It didn't really stick for a very long time, to be honest, because the way I did it was I would print out these little book covers and I would add them to my spreads and my reviews at the end of every month. That was fine until I just didn't want to print out the same covers anymore, especially when I made my TBRs, because I used to also do that for my TBRs, and eventually I just fell off the process. I've tried over the last 3 or 4 years multiple times to just restart it over and over again. It always sticks for about 4 to 6 months, and then it completely peters out and I don't do anything else for the rest of the year. This year I thought, since I asked for an iPad for Christmas, and since I'm using a digital journal for my personal life, why not try using a digital journal for reading and tracking all my reading there? I created this entirely in Canva by myself, so it does not look the most professional. It works for me. This is entirely tailored towards me. It's my first time building anything of the sort, and I honestly really like it for the fact that I've never done anything like this before and I didn't use any kind of fancy software. I just used Canva and what was free there. I'm going to let the overhead shot take over and show you how I set up my reading journal and how I'm going to be using it, and then I will see you guys back here when that is done. Welcome to my reading journal. I hope the lighting here is a little bit better than it was for my personal planner. I'm using a slightly different angle and filming on the same day, but I kind of needed to get this out of the way and done. So this is my reading journal. So I'm using the iPad 10th generation. This was a Christmas gift from my parents, and I've been loving it so much so far. I'm also using the Apple Pencil USB-C, so it is the one that has like the little charging point here. It doesn't have any of the special features, but honestly, I don't feel like I'm missing any of them. The only thing that I'm kind of missing is maybe the pressure sensitivity, but since I don't have it, I don't really know what I'm missing out on. But this is my reading journal. Like my personal journal, this is crafted entirely in Canva, and it was a bit of a pain to do, but I really like how it turned out. I made this cover out of a few patches of watercolor and a little bit of like glitter and stars going on. That was a very last minute addition, but I'm really glad I did it because I like it a lot. We're just gonna get into my reading journal. And if you hear it's like some running around in the background, my cat has the zoomies right now. So this is the index to my reading journal. I don't know how well you can read everything because I realized the font is actually kind of small. But like my personal journal, this is basically just where everything is at a glance. I have a bunch of different things like my reading goals, my bookshelf. We have a very similar sidebar here, except with like a bunch more icons at the top. And in case you're wondering, I am using Goodnotes. That is the app that I have paid for. I really like it so far. I know that Notability is the other really popular one, but when playing around with the free version, didn't really like it as much, and I just really enjoy what Goodnotes has to offer. I'm going to run through these really quickly first before going on to the individual pages because it's pretty self-explanatory. Here we have my reading goals, my reading challenge, thriller bingo, the Buzzword challenge, my ebook TBR, project TBR, my review tracker, and then just blank pages. On this side of my index column, we have my 2025 bookshelf, my favorites bracket, 10 before year end, my Buzzword cover challenge, my audiobook TBR, my reading tracker, and the mid-year freakout tag. On the side, these icons mostly align with like my annual challenges. So these are my goals. This is my bookshelf. This is my reading challenge. This is my favorites bracket. This is thriller bingo, my ebook TBR, audiobook TBR, physical TBR, my reviews, and then just blank pages. So this is the same icon that I used in my personal journal for blank pages, just in case I need more of any specific thing. And I also, once again, have all the months just down the rest of this. And even though I don't technically need a monthly spread for this, I like to divide my reviews up by month so that I know what month I read them in and I can just very easily go there. So all of these are just the months of the year and I can just tap them and go straight there. This is also hyperlinked. Again, everything was created in Canva. Going into my first page, we have my reading goals for 2025. I have room for 8 goals here, but I only wrote down 6 because these were the only 6 that I could think of. I know I will probably add a couple more throughout the year, but for now, this is just what I have. My first goal is to read 52 books. This is typically my reading goal because it's something that I can very easily achieve. There are years where I read more and there are years where I read less. Like in 2024, I didn't hit the goal, but I'm completely fine with that. This is just a very comfortable pace for me. And if I read more, then I'm happy. If I read less, it doesn't really bother me that much. I want to start reading more translated books this year. I read a couple, I think, last year, and I really want to get further into it. So I have a goal of reading 2 translated books, and this will tie in with something else that you'll see later for one of my challenges as well. And I also want to read before bed more consistently because I'm just usually on my phone and I want to change that. So reading before bed, I think will really help me. Also because I find that when I read, my sleep is a lot better and I fall asleep a lot faster. So I think this is just a really good habit overall to put in place and to also lessen my screen time at the end of the day. Another goal I have is to read 10 graphic novels. My goal for the last couple of years has been to read 5 graphic novels, and I've been able to pretty easily go beyond that. So this year I want to try and read 10 graphic novels. I'm also trying to build up my graphic novel shelf, so if you have recommendations, I would really love to check them out because I am not really sure what I like in terms of graphic novels right now, and I'm trying to figure that out. I would also like to complete a reading challenge. I have a few different reading challenges here, and we'll see that in a little bit, but I'm really, really bad at completing them. So one of the goals that I have is to actually make the effort to complete at least one of them, because that would be really good. And since I read a lot in my former job, I didn't have a lot of time to clear books off my own TBR. I was reading a lot from the library last year, so I've just had a lot of books come in, and I've just not picked them up. In order to actually get to the books that are on my shelf and ones I already own, my biggest goal is honestly to just read 30 books off my TBR. This will make a huge difference. This will really help so much in terms of cutting down what I have to read, but first I also need to just update things. This is my 2025 bookshelf. There is room for 100 books here, I believe. There should be 20 per row. It is way more than I need, but I would prefer having more than having not enough. I don't see myself ever reading 100 books in a year, maybe one day, but honestly, I think I will only be using the first 3 shelves here. My plan is to, once I finish a book, write the title in and then color it. I haven't decided if I want to color it based on month or genre or rating or whatever yet. There were a couple of years in my physical journal where I colored this in based on the format I read it in, so I'm not really sure what I want to do yet, but that's for later me to decide. And if I decide to color it in based on whatever, I have a bunch of different colors that I can use as a key. Next up, we have my reading challenge. This I will fill in. Again, I don't know if I want to fill it in based on the month. That's probably what I'm gonna do because I don't really see any other way of doing this. I could just alternate a bunch of different colors, but I kind of want to keep it within a certain theme, I guess. And again, I have 100 boxes. I am not going to be using all of that. And then I have a little box here for the day that I complete the challenge of 52. I will just write that in whenever I hit the 52, and if I don't, then it just doesn't get filled in. Next up, we have my star ratings. This is really helpful for me because I don't always know what my star ratings mean. I mean, I do, obviously, because they're my star ratings, but sometimes I have a hard time deciding between a 4 and a 4.5 or a 3.5 and a 4, and having this written out is actually really, really helpful. It's already been really nice to see how my brain works when I was filling this out and to see what each rating sort of meant to me. So at 5 stars, we have It's Wonderful, Perfect for Me, Would Reread. 4.5 is Great Book, but Not Quite Perfect. 4 stars is Great Book, but Minor Gripes or Wanting More. 3.5 is Solid, but I wanted a lot more or better. 3 is Above Average, but Nothing Special. 2.5 is Squarely Average, and that's it. 2 is Bad, but Not the Worst. I had major problems with it. 1.5 is I Probably Should Have DNF'd. 1 is Yikes, You Had to Try to Be This Bad. And 0.5 stars is How Were You Published. I know this is a little bit mean, but this is just how I feel about the books, and this is entirely my opinion on the books. I'm never going to go up to an author and say that to them. This is just kind of how I feel about each of these ratings, and having it really clarified a lot of my feelings about the books that I've been reading in 2024, because honestly, it was a pretty meh year. Moving on, we have my favorites bracket. This is one of my favorite things to do, and I saw it in someone's book journal, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and I really like the idea of it. So basically, like any bracket, your books go up against each other for you to figure out what your favorite book of 2025 is. For me, I did it a little bit differently where my quarter 1 and quarter 3 books go against each other and my quarter 2 and quarter 4 books go against each other. Most people typically do a quarter 1 and quarter 2 against each other and then quarter 3 and quarter 4 against each other. So as I was saying, my book bracket basically helps me figure out what book is my favorite of the year. I usually don't have too much trouble figuring it out, but sometimes when I have a lot of favorites, it's nice to have this method of narrowing down what really is the one that stood out to me. But this is also contingent on me having a favorite every single month. There are some months where my reading is just not great and I have to pick a meh book as my favorite or the least bad among everything that I've read. And in those cases, I just kind of know that it'll lose to one of the other months anyways. But this is just a really fun way of visualizing what my favorite book of the year could be. And also, if I manage to fill this out, this will be the first year that I've actually been able to keep up with it because I usually fall behind because I don't like printing out the covers. So the fact that this is a digital journal is really nice because I can just drag the book covers in directly from either Storygraph or from online. Next up, we have my mystery/thriller bingo. So this is a bingo board that I put together myself. I looked at a couple different bingo boards and pulled inspiration, and then looked at my TBR at some of the mysteries that I have and decided to put in certain things like an Asian author or a cold case or a police procedural. These are things that are very common in the books that I have and also very common in the mystery genre itself. I, of course, have like the blank space that I can cross out at any point, but this also helps me to be a little more intentional with the mysteries that I'm reading because I tend to read a lot from the Western canon. I read a lot from American and British authors, occasionally Canadian authors, but I want to try and read more from Asian authors, which I have a few of on my shelf, so I think that would be really great. And this is where the goal of reading translated literature also comes in because I have somewhere here. Oh yeah, translated from another language. I have a couple of mysteries that are translated and I really want to read them. So just having this on my board and having it as one of my goals will hopefully help me knock that off. I also have this little date completed thing here as well. But I guess I will do it when I get my first bingo. I'll get to cross it off and hopefully I'll be able to get a bingo. At some point, mysteries are my most read genre, so I should not have an issue, but like, I actually don't think I have any books on my TBR that have the word family in the title, so I don't know how well that's going to work. But some of these are just tropes that I really like. For example, family secrets, isolated locations, incompetent police. I think that's just a very funny thing that often gets put into mysteries. So these are just things that I hopefully will be able to check off. And then we have my 10 before year end, which right now is an 8 before year end, so it doesn't rhyme, but we're gonna go with it. This is just a goal of 10 books that I want to read that are at the top of my TBR before the end of the year. And these are on here for a variety of reasons. Starting off, we have The Glass Palace, which is my boyfriend's favorite book, and I have not read his favorite book, but he's read mine. So basically, he's a better partner than I am, and I am going to rectify that this year by reading this. And I told him about that, and he said he thought that was really nice. Let's hope that I hold myself to this because so far, whenever we talk about favorite books, he likes to point out that I have not read his favorite book yet. Then we have The Dark We Know. This is a book written by an author friend of mine. She published this last year. It's a young adult horror novel, and it's also a like retelling of versions of Spring Awakening, the musical. I'm really excited about this because it deals with a lot of themes that I've been through in real life, like moving home and like finding yourself again. So I really want to read this, and I've heard really amazing things about it so far, and I, want to support my friend as well. I also have Sharp Objects, which is the last of Gillian Flynn's novels that I need to read. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about her work, so checking this off the list will probably help with that. And then I also have to read Babel. Despite telling everyone that I'm a huge fan of R.F. Kuang, I've really only read Yellowface, but I know that I'm going to love Babel, and so this is just on my TBR. I just need to make an effort to do it because it's like 600 pages. It's not actually that big of a book. I just keep putting it off because it's dense, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm smart enough for her work. Next up, we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a book that comes highly recommended to me by a friend, actually the friend that got me to start my bookstagram in the first place. My friend Marissa really loves this, and she thinks that I would really love it too. I did start this a year or two ago. I think it was 2 years ago, and I had to soft DNF it because I just wasn't in the mood and I wasn't able to keep up with it amongst all the other reading I was doing for work. So it's back on my 10 before year end TBR this year because it was also on that list 2 years ago. Hopefully I get around to it this time. The Vegetarian is on here because Han Kang is a queen. She won the Nobel for literature. What else do I need to say? A Darker Shade of Magic. I have read this book, but I need to continue on with the trilogy so I can move on with the rest of the books, and I can't keep saying that V.E. Schwab is my favorite author without having read all of their books. I mean, I can keep saying that because I've read several of their books, but like I need to read more, and I keep putting them off because I want to save them for a rainy day, and then I just don't read them, and I have like 3 editions of this book, so I will reread A Darker Shade of Magic and then move on to the rest of the books in the series. And then I also want to read The Sympathizer this year. I was able to interview the author a couple of years ago for a festival that is here in Singapore called Singapore Writers Festival. He was a guest speaker. So I've actually interviewed Viet Thanh Nguyen. He signed both my book and the article I did on him, which is really sweet. And I really want to read the book, and then I want to watch the TV show adaptation of it as well. So when I complete this, again, date completed, I will fill out what the last 2 books are. I just haven't decided what they are yet. I will probably do that when I've updated my TBR with all the books that I've bought. And then we have the 2025 Buzzword Challenge. This is a challenge that is done by Kayla over at Books and Lala. This is a challenge that's been running for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. Basically, every month has some kind of buzzword, and you read a book based on that. It's basically something related to the title. So, for example, in January, you have Truth and Lies. But Kayla said that you can be pretty flexible with this, so it doesn't have to just be like truth, although I guess there's not much other variation of the word truth. But lies doesn't have to be exactly lies. It can be lying, it can be liar, it can be lied. So it can be a lot of different things. She's pretty flexible with it. I am not going to be following the format of doing these in the months that they're like assigned to. I'm just going to fill this out whenever I have a book that checks this off, and I will be making an effort with some of the more difficult ones, but I'm not going to be like strictly holding myself to each of these months because I just prefer the ability to be a little more free flow with this. This is also the first year that she's doing a cover challenge, and some of these are aligned with each other. So like, for example, April, you'll notice that for the cover challenge, it's animals, and for the Buzzword challenge, it's also animals. I don't know if I have a book that fits both of those. I hope I do. October is also another month where things line up. For the cover, it is weapons, and for the title, it's violent words. And I have a book, I think, that will fit that. So we'll see. I have like a lot of books that I think could fit this, but this is just a fun way to track like the different themes in covers, because there are a lot of different kinds of covers that Kayla has noticed are popular throughout the years, and different kinds of like design work, different kinds of coloring. So I've never done a cover-based challenge before, but I think this will be quite fun, and hopefully I actually am able to get this done. Also, in case you didn't already infer it, these are the challenges that I'm hoping to complete, and I hope to complete at least one of them. It doesn't have to be all, but at least one. So it can be the cover challenge, the regular Buzzword challenge, my 10 before year end challenge, or bingo. After that, we get into my TBR. So this is just a cover page I made to kind of separate them out a little bit because I think it looks nice and it's nice to have a separator. This is my ebook TBR of all the ebooks I own and have not read. Why am I like this? I don't know. I have all of these books and I just have not picked them up. So I should get on that. Somehow I've managed to have one blank space, so if I buy an ebook, I guess it'll go here. These are books that I've gotten either because they were like super cheap or because it was free from Amazon at some point, and so like I bought it. I've just not touched these even though they're on my Kindle and I do use my Kindle. That's a problem because I can't keep accumulating these books and not picking them up. Like, they don't take up physical space, but I spent money on some of these, so like I should read them. Next up, we have my audiobook TBR. I used to have an Audible membership. I don't anymore, and some of these are books that I've been trying to actually borrow from the library, and I've realized I have the audio version of this, so I should stop borrowing Local Women Missing because I don't need to keep borrowing it. I literally have the audiobook version of it. I don't have my Audible subscription anymore, but I still own all of these books and I still have the app and they're on my Kindle, so I might as well just, listen to them. How I'm going to do this is every time I finish a book, I'm going to color in the headphones. That's basically it. And then we have my pages for Project TBR. This is going to be its own video because I need to get a handle on my TBR. As this little preamble that I've written for myself says, I've accumulated a lot of books and not managed to make a dent in my physical TBR or my digital TBR pretty much at all. So to combat that, I'm going to add everything up and put it in my TBR jar again and make it a goal to read more off this, which is also where my reading 30 books off my TBR goal comes in. So once I've counted everything, I'm going to fill out this blank of how many unread books I have on my shelves, and then as of the end of the year, I'm going to fill out with hopefully at least 30 books less. I have a lot of spaces here. As you can see, I have multiple pages. I also have a bunch of blanks of this in case I need more. I don't know how many unread books I have. It's somewhere around the 150 to 180 mark, but I'm not sure because that was my last count almost 2 years ago. And then we have my reading tracker. This is basically just a spread where I will pull the covers of each of the books I've read into this once I've read it, and I will fill in the star rating. So I have these elements that I've made already. If I go to my stickers and I go to my star ratings, here I can just tap on one of these and like overlay that. I don't know how well you can see that, but I can just put that on top of my rating and then it'll fill in and you'll see like that's my rating for all of this. It's not super dark and I can like definitely try to darken it more if I wanted to, but I think this works out pretty nicely. And the nice thing about this page is that all of these are also hyperlinked. If I tap this here, it'll take me to the review page. I have one linked for every cover that is on that page. So we're going to go back to that. So we have one for everything here, and my camera battery's dying, so give me a minute. I'll be right back. Hopefully the angle of my camera hasn't changed too much while I was changing the battery. But like I said, all of these are hyperlinked, which makes it really convenient so that whenever I want to go into the review and just see like what I thought of it, I can just tap it and I'll go straight into the review. My review page, again, was built by me in Canva. It just says book number of 2025, whether it's a standalone or part of a series, would I recommend it, and who I would recommend it to. On the side, we have the title, the pages, the date read, and then the format that I read it in. Normally, I would distinguish between paperback and hardback, but I'm just going to do physical ebook and audio. And then the book cover will be here, star ratings again, and then I have a bunch of room for my thoughts. I also have a separate blank page that I will show you later in case I have any thoughts. And then at the very bottom, I also have a space for trigger warnings. I think it's a really good resource to have, and I make sure that if a book ever does have trigger warnings, when I review it, I talk about it. So this is just a place for me to note that down. Not every book will have it, but I want to have a space dedicated to it in case I need it so I don't have to like scramble to find a place for it, so I don't accidentally miss out on writing down important trigger warnings. Going back to the reading tracker, I have space for, I believe, 72 books here. Again, I'm not going to hit that number, but in case I do, in case I read a lot for some reason, I have room for it, and I can always make more of these pages if I ever need it. After that, we have my review tracker, which is basically just a space for me to track whether or not I've written out my reviews for it. So I have room here for the title with the author, and then 3 columns here. The 3 columns here based on their pictures mean, have I taken a photo of it? Have I written about it in my reading journal here? And have I posted it to Instagram? There's space technically for one more column. I didn't make another column. I don't really need to do that, but this is just for me to track whether or not I've written my reviews for everything, because sometimes I forget whether or not I've written down my thoughts, and then I go back to a book and I'm like, oh, I actually don't remember what I thought about this because I didn't write it down. So this helps me keep track of all of that. I have 3 pages of this, which is 90 books. Again, not going to read that much. I honestly could have stopped at 2, but I figured since I have 72 trackers for like my reading, I will just have 90 for my reviews. It makes sense in my head. I don't know how to explain that to you. And then we get into the monthlies. So this is just January, it's cover page, and then we get into these review pages. Right now I have 6 review pages per month. I typically read about 4 to 6 books in a month, and if I don't read this, I can move them around pretty easily. If I go to this icon over here with like the 4 squares, I can tap on that and I can move these around as and when I need it. So if I, for example, read 7 books, I can just go to February and pull up one of these further up. At the end of the month, I have my monthly reading stats. So here is pretty self-explanatory. I write down the month, the books read, the pages read, my most read genre, and then my favorite book with a star rating, all the titles and all the ratings. And then I have a little thing here to track the days in which I finished a book, so I will just color this in when I finished a book. I also have a thing at the very bottom here that helps me track my TBR number. So basically this is helping me to keep track of like how many books I hopefully knocked off my TBR during the month, and it would be nice to see this go down every month. If there are months in which it goes up, you know that means I bought more books than I read, or I didn't read and I bought books, which I should not be doing. We're back in my index now because this is the easiest way to get to this sheet. This is my mid-year freakout tag. This is the mid-year book freakout challenge, and I've just written down all the questions so that when I want to do this for social media, I have all my answers here really easily. It's just all the questions, spaces for the answers. And before that, I also have a mid-year reading update. So this is just a check-in at the end of June for me to see like how many books I've read, how many pages I've read, what my average rating is, and what my average pages is, my most read genre, and my most read formats. And then we have my current TBR number and the number of 5 stars I've given out. I'm recording this because last year I only read 6 books that I gave 5 stars, which is really sad, as opposed to the 11 books that I gave 4.5 stars. I also have this thing here for goals achieved and goals I want to focus on. I might have achieved some by this point. I hope I've achieved some goals by the middle of the year. And then I have like my favorite books so far and my least favorite books so far. So this basically, if anyone asks me, I actually have answers and I don't have to like think through all the books I read so far and be like, I don't know what I read this year. That's basically it for all of my monthly spreads. It's pretty repetitive, so I'm going to show you my blank pages. So these are just the blank templates. I have extras of my ebook TBR and my audiobook TBR in case I need it. I have another thing for a bookshelf. If I somehow read more than 100 books, I guess a second bookshelf will come in handy. And if I, read more than 100 books, a second reading challenge page will also come in handy. Extra pages for Project TBR, just in case I need it. I don't know that I would because this fits 30 books per page, but you know what? I potentially have a lot of unread books. These are extra reading trackers, so right now, these are unlinked, but I can link them. So if I believe, hold down for a long time, I can add a link to this, and I don't know if it's this page or like this element or this like square or whatever, but I should be able to add a link, so I should still be able to build my own links within this. Hopefully that works. I haven't tried this yet, I haven't played around with it, but I've heard people talk about it. We'll see if I end up needing it, if I read more than 72 books, which I don't think is going to happen. I have extras of these, again, if I read more than the 72. And if I want an extra page to write out more thoughts, I have a completely blank page here as well. Extra monthly reading sets if I don't know, somehow delete one or like mess it up so badly that I can't just erase all of it. I don't know why I have extras, but it's always good to have extras just in case. And then I have journaling pages if I want to write about my reading. One of my friends, Simone, over on Bookstagram, she does this thing in her book journal, or she used to, I don't know if she still does it, but she used to do a bit of journaling about her reading and how she felt about it. So I decided that I wanted to have the opportunity to do that if I felt like it. So this is just a journaling page. Over here we have the date, what I'm currently reading, and then whatever I want to write. And if I need more than just this page, I can once again use this. This is also completely blank because I didn't want to like do the little thing here, and I actually kind of like that it's completely blank. You'll notice that these two pages are the only ones that don't have any of like the background stuff. I like that because I want to be able to focus entirely on the writing and the cover, so I'm perfectly fine not having those elements there. It does make it look a little more plain, but honestly I would prefer this over the distraction of having like colored background. This is a blank page in case I ever want to make like, I don't know, a library loan tracker or something if I want to do a different kind of spread. I have two versions of this where I can create new spreads however I want. So that is my reading journal. I hope you enjoyed watching me flip through this. If you have any questions, you can comment them down below. I will be happy to answer them. I know that was a pretty quick overview of everything, and I hope I explained everything well enough. I do think I'm more likely to keep up with things because once again, spreads like this, printing out the physical version of the covers for my physical journal was one of the reasons I didn't keep up with it, because I would have to like wait till the end of the month and then print it out and stick it in. It was a whole process, and I would do it for this reading tracker, and then I would also do it like for each month, and it got to a point where I was just like, I didn't really feel like doing it anymore. Like I started off each new year really excited to do stuff like that, and then I just fell off around June pretty much every single year. So I'm hoping that with this being digital, I can just very easily do a split screen, pull the cover over, and it'll just make it a lot easier for me to track stuff and make me a lot more likely to keep up with journaling about each of these books and like writing my reviews down. I like my journal a lot. The purpley blue thing is very like on brand for me. The sparkles are not, but like I really like how everything turned out, and I think it's pretty and functional. So, that's honestly all that matters. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me flip through my reading journal and how I plan to use it. I know the lighting situation was not great. I was trying to refilm that at like 7, no, I was like 9 o'clock at night, and that was honestly the best I could do because I did not have time in my schedule to do it any other way, so I'm really sorry for the lighting. But I'm glad I got to show you guys my reading journal. I just finished my first book of the year as of when I'm filming this, and I'm about to finish my second book of the year as well, so I'm going to be like doing a little bit of short form content, I think, about how I fill out my reading journal. I'm really excited to use this. I think it'll be a lot easier for me to just drag and drop a bunch of the covers instead of having to print them out all the time. That's one of the things about digital journaling that really appealed to me, this ability to very easily incorporate photos. I think it'll be a lot of fun for me to just use this throughout the year and see how I like it, see if it's something that I stick with. I really hope it is, because I would love to have like an entire digital journal of my thoughts about my reading throughout the year. Let me know if there's any kind of trackers or spreads that you want to see me try, or you want to see me fill out or have in my journal. I'm always open to these kinds of things. There's so many more things I can do with a digital journal that I can't really do with a physical journal. A lot of people though are so creative. I've been watching so many like TikTok videos about how people are tracking their reading in their bullet journals, and it's so cool. Like the Bookopoly one is like I maybe want to try that for next year. That, like, it just looks so much fun. Anyways, I'm gonna stop blabbering now. I'm excited to fill out my reading spreads for the year and to slowly show you guys how it looks as the months progress. That's all for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!